intro?
Yeah, let's go.
Excellent. Okay, so here we'll go this way. This is Jas
And Sher.
and you are listening to Giving Up the Ghost. And come on, woo! Ow, ow! And the place we're in tonight, there has been a few people that have given up the ghost. From what I wanted to get more stories on that third floor. Because that was kind of creepy, right? Yeah. So we are joined. Well, actually, we are joining. We got invited. This is not our. Yeah. Don't steal the thunder. No. We were honored to be asked by Kelly and Ashley from the Winnipeg Paranormal Group to come down to Elie, Manitoba. Oh, look at that there.
There's a phone right by it, though.
Oh.
Does that really affect it that badly?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Freak me out.
Damn it.
Like,
Their K2 meters going off. Yeah. So we are, how do we pronounce the name of this gorgeous B&B? It is L'Auberge. And then Clemence B&B and tea house, right? Tea room?
B&B and tea?
Retreat.
B&B retreat and tea.
It used to be a tea house.
Used to be a tea house. Okay. So the ladies have been here Friday night and we joined them on Saturday evening and they're going to be here tonight as well. So they're probably going to get some freaky stuff happening to them tonight, I think.
Well,
Maybe. I mean, one can only hope. Not to say that you guys are freaky, but just the fact that they know you. Yeah, okay. Well, I always find, and I've said this, I don't know how many times, like for Kristen's Square Pig tours, I find her tours, you spend the most time in one spot concentrated, you do feel and see things. You know, like you spend more time. I mean, you guys probably have so many stories you can share with us, right? Like, that's what we want to hear. We want to hear your stories.
Yeah, you tell stories.
And we're going to talk about this place. We're just here. We're just part of the furniture. So that's why we're doing the mic in this
I'm like a
direction.
love seat myself.
We're just going to sit back and listen to you
Where to
guys talk.
start?
Yeah, I'm gonna get a
Coffee, you go.
Oh, yeah, I want coffee too.
We can, I'll edit. We'll come back to it. That's
Oh
fine.
my gosh.
Oh,
Do you want-
wonderful.
Do you want to start with the story at your place?
Well, I guess that's really where our partnership began, right?
Yeah, we want to find out more about how you guys got involved in this.
Oh boy. Well, why don't you start with you?
Okay. Well, I mean, I've always been interested in this since I was a kid. I mean, I was just fascinated from the get-go.
Yeah.
I grew up watching, do you remember In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy? Yeah. Like I was so fascinated by it and,
It used to freak me out. Like, it used to get me, because I didn't understand it, but I wanted to know more.
well, the unknown, right? I just wanted to know, I wanted answers. I wanted to find out what else was out there. I knew that there was something bigger than what, I always felt that since I was a child, right? And, I got into the Ouija boards as most kids do and tarot cards and all of that stuff. And I did grow up Catholic. And when my parents found out I was doing that, they were very angry at me. So I had to do it in secret for a long time. And, kind of like when I started actually investigating, I didn't want to tell anyone for the longest time. I was afraid to tell anyone, especially my family. But now, when I finally did tell them, they were, it was like everybody else's reaction. Like, I have all of these stories. I'm like, what? Why is this okay now? When I was a kid, like I was forbidden to, you opened a door and you can't close it. And, and I just kept ending up in spiritual kind of places and people, like even when I was working in newspaper as a newspaper reporter. I worked in Sedona. If you guys know anything about Sedona, Arizona.
Sedona? Okay.
Yeah, it's known as a very spiritual place.
UFOs,
UFOs,
right?
yeah. So I always end up in. I feel like I was just always pulled into these things, even if totally.
Sort of, yeah.
And when I got into this group, someone else was running it. Someone else had started it, and I just kind of fell into it. And the next thing I know, I'm running it. I'm like, how did this happen? And then she had hired us to go into her house and investigate, Ashley. I'm like, you can't hear that. So Ashley hired us to go into her house to investigate. there were all kinds of things that she said were happening. And this was still in the beginning of when I was doing it. And, I was still, I'm still skeptical when I go into places. I'm not
you have
I
to be
don't
to a
just go in
certain
and say, I
Yeah.
believe everything that you're saying. I believe that you believe,
Right.
but we want to
Right.
kind of
But that's
see if there's any
but we
regular.
say that, but we say that too. We call ourselves optimistic skeptics
Yeah.
because
Yes.
because we believe what happened to you because we've had our own. But I mean,
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean it's always there.
Yeah, because there's always things that you can explain away, right?
Or you hear stories that
Yeah.
are bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And people
You
send
hear
us
lots
faked
of those.
videos and
Oh,
faked
really?
pictures, and
Yeah.
I'm like, at least let it be good.
Like, do a good job at least.
yeah,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
make it like impressive. right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, I remember investigating, and all of these members, I think, are gone now. But that was in the beginning, and I remember investigating her place, and it was like, I don't know, 2:30, 3 o'clock, and like all of the stuff was starting to, like, the batteries were dying, and we're just like, I remember thinking, am I like wasting my time? Am I crazy? Why am I doing this? Right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. That's when
really?
it all happened. And of course, we didn't even get some of it because, like,
Everything's dead.
all of our
It's
stuff
waiting.
was dying. We
It's
had
waiting.
older equipment then,
Yeah.
and I didn't invest in anything yet. And so I remember being in her house, and we always checked, like, all the windows. We made sure nothing, like, the heat wasn't on or any vents or anything like that, just to disprove anything.
Right.
And we were in the bedroom where she said things had happened. And what happened? Oh, so one of the investigators who was near me, he started hyperventilating, and I was like, what's
up,
wrong with
dude?
you? And
Yeah.
he's like,
And he's like a big, tall guy.
I was just like, are you okay? And he's like, and he wasn't saying anything. And then all of a sudden I look over and I see, it looked like, did you ever see that movie Poltergeist?
Oh yeah.
You know that weird mist cloud that goes into the ceiling?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I saw.
Oh.
And I was like, can I swear on this? I swear all the time.
Yeah.
Except when I'm at work. I was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, is anybody saying this? And I'm like yelling. And then
Yeah.
someone else from across the room, he's like frozen because something had grabbed his hand. And so he just, not to say the pun, but he was as white as a ghost.
Really?
Of course.
And he was freaked. Everybody was freaking out. It was just like
Wow.
everything was happening at once. And we're like, what the fuck just happened? So I go
Yeah,
and
just
grab.
like all of a sudden, boom. Right?
Yeah, I go and grab my phone. That's the first thing I think of, and I start taking pictures.
Yeah.
And then later I'm going through them, and I see this outline, and I'm like, this looks like a little girl, like standing
Oh.
on her bed.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah,
I
isn't
was
that
like,
fun?
Yeah.
Like,
So I didn't want to read. Yeah, it was
Oh, God.
crazy. I still get
Yeah.
goosebumps when I think about it. And the team would meet. We would have all these meetings, and I said, "Can you guys please take a look at this? I'm not going to tell you
Yeah.
what I see."
Right.
And
You
somebody.
look and see if there's anything there.
Somebody said this looks like a little girl, like in a
Did you
nightgown,
find out if
standing
there
on the
was?
bed. Well,
wait,
so
there's more.
we're in this meeting with the group, and one of the guys from the group said, "Okay, I have to tell you, I have to confess something. I didn't want to tell you guys this because I didn't want to like lead you to
Right.
thinking something. But one of my friends used to actually live in that place. It was It was a duplex.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he said that he used to see a little girl in the basement.
Ooh.
We were like, oh my God, so we were just, I was just blown away, and it validated like what I was doing. I'm like,
What was
this
she
is,
doing there? Did you ever find out?
Did you get
Like,
the history? No.
nothing?
no, it's really hard to find history. It really is, because I
It
think a lot
depends
of
on
people
when they're
they don't
built,
want to
right?
report things. When they
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
people don't want to tell anybody.
No.
Like, here, do you want to rent my haunted apartment?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would say yes,
Yeah.
but I mean, most people would be like,
Yeah.
oh, did somebody die in here? And,
Because we do in the history searches, but we find it all depends on the
you're
age.
moving
The
where?
older the place
Yeah.
it is,
The more shit there is, always.
because
Okay.
newspapers, the stuff they used to report.
They didn't
was
care.
stupid. Like,
Yeah.
it's scandalous.
yeah, yeah.
John was arrested for drunken disorder
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
weekend, and yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, like it's you're right. Like it all depends on what's reported and what's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's tough. Yeah, it was a really weird place, and it was small, but is
Yeah,
like
it
her
wasn't that
hallway. It was like a funhouse hallway. We all take turns walking down it. We're like, see if you don't feel weird walking down this
it was
hallway.
disorientating, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it was
It felt
the
like a
energy in
fun
the house
house.
or whether it was just because it was green and white checkered flooring, right?
Ooh.
Like the green,
yes.
big
Like
green
that
squares.
old timey squares they had. Those like
well, not the
linoleum
little ones,
things.
but yeah, like you know,
Like they had
Yeah,
in old
yeah,
stores.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
so instead of
Yeah.
black and white,
Asbestos.
this was green
Yeah.
and white,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
and it was all the way down the hall, and the walls were green,
Oh.
Well,
and
that's
it
weird.
just
Well, it
had
felt
this
like you were
weird-
walking down it, and it felt like the whole.
You're just
It
starting
felt
to
like it
slowly
was
tip.
slanting.
Yeah.
You know, like in a fun house when you
Yeah,
walk
yeah.
on those
Yeah.
on those walks, and
Wibbly
it
wobbly
starts
things.
tilting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it felt,
Wow.
and it was really funny because I'm like this little person in the group, and it was like at the time it was like these big brawly guys with me, and they're just like, I'm not going down there. I'm like, I will. Like I'm the
still
crazy
you,
person
though.
who's always like, oh, crawl space, I'll go in there.
Yeah.
They're just like, what is wrong with
Which
you?
end of town was your house?
Elmwood.
Oh, Elmwood.
Yeah.
Love Elmwood. Yeah. I know
It seems
Elmwood
like there's a
very well.
Yeah.
lot of stuff in Elmwood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Elmwood, as I like to call it
Elmwood, I call
now.
it Elmwood.
I love Elmwood.
Yeah. Well, my mother grew. My mom had her house in North Kildonan, so a lot of my friends and I lived in East Kildonan for 10 years. So a lot of our friends, a lot of people we know, Elmwood.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. Was the
So
place?
yeah, so old it is.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty old.
Well, and with the cemetery right there and the Hamilton
Oh,
house,
sure.
like it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's just a creepy
Yeah.
kind of feeling area.
Right. Yeah. About
See
your
ya.
house.
Yeah, excuse me, sorry.
And how long did you stay there after?
We were there for a total of about I want to say 5 years.
Yeah, because we used to do trainings in there.
Yeah, we did.
We're like, okay, let's go back to Ashley's. I wanted to like live at her house.
Yeah.
like,
So
yay,
we
ghosts.
moved in when my oldest son was a year old, shortly after his first birthday. And so I always start explaining, like, we lived in an apartment before, so because the lights were so bright and everything's all lit up, we actually had blankets on his windows, right, in the apartment. So my son slept in pitch black, right? Like, no light came in, didn't have a nightlight, nothing.
Yeah.
And we moved in, and he had blinds on his windows, so some light was coming in, but you know, it was still pretty dark. And around the age of 2.5, he started asking for a nightlight.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, why? Like, what's going on, honey? Like, what's changed?
Right.
And he looks at me, straight face, like, how do you not know? Like, the dark man comes out of my closet, Mom.
Oh, Lord.
I'm like, oh,
I'll get you 5 nightlights.
okay, let's get you a nightlight,
Yeah.
honey, if that's what,
We'll
like,
poke them
yeah,
everywhere.
not a
That's-
problem.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So that was the first of it, and then we started noticing, like, my husband, well, I call him my husband, but he's my husband. We started noticing other things, like we would hear footsteps when we had set up so that our living room was in the basement, and what was actually the living room was the kids' playroom, because it
Right.
was just a bungalow and not a lot of rooms, so the kids got the living room, of course. But yeah, so we'd start to hear footsteps, and like there was a couple nights where it literally sounded like somebody was having a dance party above us. You know, like we know the kid is in bed,
Yeah.
and not only that, but he doesn't sound like that.
No, it's not going to
sure.
sound
Oh, for
Like,
little feet to make
Yeah.
little
20
noise.
pounds, right?
yeah, exactly. Like he's not making that much noise. We had things like handprint on the wall, bloody handprint, nice bright red.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Seriously.
Seriously.
Oh, I shouldn't be saying that
Yeah.
here, sorry, but yeah.
So again, kid was in bed. We had been downstairs in the basement, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, maybe you had spaghetti for dinner." No, I don't remember exactly what we had for dinner, but it was not
It
spaghetti.
wasn't, yeah.
And not
like, I
only
mean,
that, but the handprint was like, it was bigger than his hand, but smaller than mine.
Yeah, it was small.
Oh.
And it was in a spot where he wouldn't have been able to reach.
Oh, yeah, right.
So yeah, there's like this bloody handprint on my wall, and I'm like,
And the stereo went on too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the
then,
stereo,
oh yeah,
it would randomly.
I was laying in bed, and at this point, my son liked to fall asleep in my bed, and then we'd move him to his.
Understandable with the dark view.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was pregnant at the time, so I'm like, whatever. I'm gonna take my cuddles while I can, and, right? So we're laying in bed. He's sound asleep. My husband's in the basement, and all of a sudden, my stereo in the playroom turns on, full blast. Yeah.
What song was playing?
I honestly don't know. It was radio.
Curious. You know what I mean? Like,
Radio.
you know?
It was a rock song. That's all I remember. Like it was loud,
it was like
right? Like the house was shaking so loud.
Oh,
jeez.
So we turn it off. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, don't know what happened, but something happened, right? Mm-hmm. Go back to bed. Same thing happens the next night.
Someone didn't want you to sleep or what?
I guess not. I don't know. But we go and so the next day I'm like, I'm actually going to go and investigate. Like, I'm going to go and look at this stereo and figure out what is going on. So I look, and an alarm had been set on the stereo.
Oh.
That's weird.
But the only way to set the alarm was with the remote, which we had no idea where it was. It had been lost like a year before. We honestly had no idea where this remote was.
Right.
Yeah.
The ghost had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
That's so weird though. And why
So-
set an
yeah.
alarm for an oddball time like that?
Did you have
Right.
animals like cats or dogs or anything?
no, we were renting at the time, so there was no pets allowed.
Oh.
Yeah. And then your bed.
Yeah. Oh.
And then my bitch, she's like, yeah.
There's a lot of action in that bed. It wasn't a good action.
Yeah.
It was ghost action.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about moving out?
We did, but at that point we couldn't afford it. Like
Yeah.
we had decent rent.
course.
We had
You're in a
one
lease.
kid. We were in
Yeah.
a lease. I was pregnant. We didn't want to rent
wants to
someplace
haul
that
up and-
it was a lot of work at that point, and it's just like it's not.
Yeah.
So, the bed. Now this is the same bed that Kelly took the picture of and had
The
the
same ones the babies
the
were made in.
same. Nope. Well, one, yes, but the other one, no.
Give me a minute to catch on to that. Okay, we're talking about ghosts, so I think. All right.
So I'm laying in bed, and again, it's late. Kids in bed. Husband is down the hall in the bathroom. Right, you can see the light.
Yeah, glowing.
Right,
Yeah.
glowing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm laying on my my left side, my right side. Sorry, doesn't matter. I'm laying on my side with my back to the door, and I'm on the side of the bed furthest away from the door.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So I'm laying there, and all of a sudden, I feel this weight. And it was heavy enough sitting down on the bed that it
Rocks you a little
I
bit?
not rocked. I rolled.
Oh, okay.
I rolled to the middle of the bed, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I just start like kicking my feet, and I'm like, Sean, what are you doing? Come back.
Oh.
Like I
That
lost
something out of
it.
Yeah.
Poltergeist.
Yeah, it was
Right.
really weird. Like
Yeah.
we went one of the other times when we went back to investigate, some of us were sitting on the bed, and then we're like, "Is there
Yeah.
anybody here?" And it was me,
Jamie.
Jamie, and and
I
Michael.
just gave them my keys, by the way.
No,
I
yeah,
gave them my keys,
and
I'm
that's
like,
what people usually do.
Have a good night.
But we were like,
enjoy
we were
yourself.
we were asking if anybody was here, and all of a sudden, like, because we were kind of farther away from each other, and right in between us, we could hear, "I'm here," and we're like, we're like, "Holy
Okay,
crap!
so
Did you
you
hear
heard
that?"
the voice
We were
say,
like
"I'm
laughing
here"?
because we were just like, "Did you hear that?"
Yeah, I
It
think
was awesome.
I think the
But
final straw for me to finally actually contact, even after all that rolling
Even
into the middle,
after all the blood
all
and all
that, right?
Yeah.
It was after my youngest was born,
Yeah.
right? And we're all moms, right? They wake up in the middle of the night, you take them out, you rock
Yeah.
them back to sleep, right? Give them a bottle. So when I do the arm test, right? He's passed out, arm just drops. All right, great. Give him a few more minutes, right? Just to make sure the arm test didn't do something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he would wake up, eyes wide open, and he'd look over my shoulder,
Oh, it's like that night
and he
panic
would
thing.
just burst out
Right.
laughing.
My kid did that once, but
And I'm
he
like,
wasn't laughing.
laughing.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That's kind of creepy.
I think you're gonna go to bed now. Like,
Yeah.
put yourself to sleep now. Love you.
Yeah. Boy.
Yeah, and then I reached out to Winnipeg Paranormal at that point, and I'm like, I know what's going on. My husband's having the same experiences, but I need to know I'm not crazy. Like, is this
Yeah.
actually what's
Yeah.
going on in my home?
Why would you? Ooh, I'm laughing though. I wonder what the hell
Right?
was there.
So how long were you there all together?
Jeremy was a year when we moved in, and he celebrated his 5th birthday in our new house. So 4.5 years.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. Holy.
Did they
But I-
finally give up after, like, did this all happen in the first while that you first moved in and then slowed
Continue.
down? Or
Oh no,
No, it continued to
It
the end.
continued the
Right
whole
through.
thing. Yeah, my
And
niece
you-
started refusing to babysit because the door handle would turn off for her, and yeah, she'd be like, "No, I'll babysit, but I'm having a friend with me." I'm like, "Sure,
Yeah.
all right."
But I find most of our clients don't want to get rid of what's ever there.
No.
They just want to know.
They just want to know.
Yeah.
And they want to be respectful.
Yeah.
They're just like, well, they were here first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is their
I just
answer?
set
Because
my
I thought
rules.
all of
It's
them
not
would be like, don't you
dangerous,
want to get
right?
rid
And
of
then you don't really
So
care.
it wasn't
But
scaring you.
It was well
well,
What-
I mean, still,
Yeah, nervous.
yeah.
with
Yeah,
not
it's
understanding what was there. Yes, it was scaring me. But once I knew, like once they had been in my home, they'd come a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd still
They
be
had told
scared.
me that the previous renters had had experiences as well. It was like, okay, well maybe like I just set my rules. I'm like, look, like you can't bug my kids.
Yeah.
You know, you have to leave us alone while we sleep,
Uh-huh.
right? Like I
Yeah,
have to
I
be
mean, while
able to
they're,
live
like,
a normal
cooking
life.
and,
Oh,
If
so
you,
you were
It's
talking
like
to
it.
them, just saying.
yep,
Yeah.
yep,
And were they responding
Yeah.
to that?
You think?
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, after that, well, I mean, we stayed in the house for.
Just
We
had
still
to-
had activity.
Yeah.
But it wasn't
Yeah.
as unnerving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, we'd walk in. Hi, I'm home.
Yeah.
You know, we find
Yeah.
that too. Like for the few houses that we've been able to successfully, I wish I did say diagnose, but I mean
Yeah.
like research and find out what and who and the whens and all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. When we put the pieces together, people,
They'd be like, oh, it makes sense
it
now.
makes sense
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
And I want to give people that sense of comfort in knowing who they're with, who their roommate is,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
at least in that way you have, like you say, it may
Yeah.
not stop it, it may not,
Yeah.
but at least you have an appreciation.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's just Rose again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
could never find any history, like any reason for there to be anybody in the
Right.
home. The only thing we came up with was that the floor joists were old railroad ties,
Oh, conductors.
Yeah.
right?
And
So-
that's a hard part about this field is there could be so many explanations,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You could have brought something in.
Could have
there
been
could be
something from the
history
freaking
tied to
garage
the
sale you
place. It
picked
could
up.
be the original
Yeah.
land. It
Yeah.
could be attachments, possessions.
Yeah.
Like there's so many.
Variables,
Yeah,
yeah.
and with
Variables that you're
things not
just
having
like,
to be disclosed in Winnipeg, like for example, you don't have to disclose that there was a death in the house
No.
No.
unless it was a violent death. You know, for example, a murder or something like
Yes.
that. That you have to
Yeah.
disclose. But if somebody just dies in their
their
sleep,
Yeah.
No.
you do
How
not
about
have to
if somebody
disclose that.
hangs himself.
Yeah. Lots of people have done that before.
So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, not as much Instagram, but
Yeah.
TikTok,
We did Twitter, but,
Twitter,
that's Twitter
you know,
burning up in a
Facebook
bullet
is
point.
our big thing where everybody gets a hold of us and we interact. So that's very cool. Thanks for joining us tonight. Again, this will be split up in a few different episodes. And as we like to say, remember to live every day like it is your last. Never give up the ghost. Never give up the ghost. See? You see? Never give up the ghost. Never give up the ghost. Good night to the nuns. Thank you. Thank you, Linda.